In today's video, we uncover the chilling story of a family that seemed picture-perfect from the outside. Their romantic trip was meant to be filled with love and memories, but instead, it spiraled into a shocking tragedy. A successful engineer with a PhD took a short hike with her husband on March 18, 2025, on the island of Oahu, Hawaii, to the beautiful top of Nanu Pali. The spot was picked for a special birthday picture because of its beautiful views and difficult, steep path. Something very bad did happen, though. Nearby tourists said they heard screams. The police and fire departments were called. When first responders came, they rushed the hurt woman to the hospital while her husband disappeared into the forest. Before we dive deeper, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I always love hearing from viewers around the world. And if you're into true crime cases like this one, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. All right, let's get back to the case. Ghart Koig was born and raised in South Africa. Since he was a child, his dream was to become a doctor. He got into a top medical school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, by being calm, focused, and careful. There, he finished his residency and began working as a specialist in anesthesiology, a job that requires both a lot of focus and mental control. He worked at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, which is one of the best hospitals in the country, for almost 10 years. He made a good name for himself. His patients liked how carefully he took care of them. His colleagues admired how smart and professional he was, and his students said he was a patient and enthusiastic teacher. In addition to his clinical work, he was a guest lecturer and assistant teacher in the medical department of the university, where he helped train people to become doctors. He was also a father at that point in his life. From a past relationship, he had a son named Emil. He didn't talk much about his past or his ex-partner, but he did talk about being involved in his son's life and trying to stay involved in his raising. Ariel Koig was born in the USA. She chose a completely different job path than Ghart and became an engineer. Nuclear engineering was a very specialized and hard area for her to work in. Right after she got her PhD, she quickly became known as a top expert. Ariel was smart in more ways than one. She also had a special skill for running projects very quickly and effectively, which made her a standout professional in her field. Friends and coworkers said she was smart, focused, and grounded. They said she was a rare combination of being analytically brilliant and genuinely nice. She was goal-oriented, driven, and focused, but she was also friendly and easy to talk to. Even though her job required a lot of her, she was always willing to give of her time and energy. Ghart and Ariel lived in different parts of the world. At the time, they didn't know each other. The paths of their lives had not crossed, either officially or personally. Ghart didn't know anything about the bright American nuclear engineer, and Ariel had never heard of the South African anesthesiologist. Each person was making their own way through life and building a job. They were still going to meet. Ariel and Ghart met for the first time at a professional event in Pennsylvania in 2018. The event was for people working in academic and research areas. Their first meeting was short but unforgettable. Ghart was impressed right away by Ariel's sharp mind and quick thought. She also liked his calm demeanor, quiet confidence, and sense of humor. After a few weeks, they saw each other again. In this case, it was at a talk about science that combines medicine and engineering. From that second meeting on, people kept in touch. At first, it was just a friendly chat about ideas, but it quickly turned into something more personal. They both believed the same things about the world, loved science, and wanted things to stay the same. They got along better because they shared these beliefs. Their partnership grew quickly, but it seemed natural. In the same year, they got married, and they did it without any doubt or hesitation. In 2020, 2 years after that, they had their first boy, Olin. Vigo, their second boy, was born in 2023. Even though the boys were only a few years apart in age, Ghart and Ariel's lives changed. Family became the most important thing in the world. Even though his job as a doctor was very demanding, Ghart kept practicing, and Ariel took a break from her work for a while to spend more time with their boys. They put taking care of the boys above all else. People shared pictures on social media of what seemed like an ideal life. Ghart always smiled and seemed calm and sure of himself. Ariel always had her younger son in her arms and looked calm and happy. When the boys were at the beach, they wore light-colored shirts that matched and built sand castles. The comments were short and neutral. They didn't show too much emotion, but they did send a message of peace. A lot of people who followed them online liked how calm their life looked. Their neighbors said they were friendly, but kept to themselves. The house never made any noise. There were no fights or strange behavior. It wasn't unusual for them to have people over, but that didn't make them suspicious. It just fit the idea of a pair who are busy with work and family. Not only did the housekeeper and babysitter agree, but so did a few family friends. At first glance, the family seemed trustworthy. Christina, who was close to them and often helped take care of the boys, said that the house always felt calm and that Ghart seemed to pay attention to Ariel and the kids and care about them. Soon after, though, small changes started to show up, not big enough for most people to notice. Ariel became quieter when she talked to people. People who asked her personal questions got short and sometimes even cold answers. Some people told her she looked tired, but she never said what was bothering her. When people talked, she sometimes looked tense and far away, like she wasn't paying attention. While this was going on, Ghart stayed as polite as normal, but slowly became less close to the people around him. Neither person seemed to be angry with the other. Everything looked fine at first glance, but it was clear after the fact. There was already more emotional space between them. A fight wasn't going on. It was about how closeness, trust, and relationships slowly fell apart. Behind the smiles at the beach and the outdoor barbecues, there were already some cracks, but they were so quiet that not even the people closest to them knew what they were. It looked like this family was perfect, but something was already coming apart. By the summer of 2023, Ghart Koig's behavior had started to change in ways that could be seen. No longer were these just rare signs of being tired or stressed. They turned into a regular design. His relationship with Ariel became more tense as he constantly suspected her and had questions about her loyalty that were not based in fact. Ariel didn't show any worry. She kept to herself at home and mostly worked from home, rarely talking to people outside of her close group. Still, Ghart could lose control and lose his temper over something as easy as a business message or a short phone call. It became normal to question people. He would want to know why people sent texts, emails, or even voicemails. He insisted on reading her texts and listening in on her talks, and he often said she was hiding things from him. He would sometimes go on long rants about how she was hiding something. Normal things started to look like they might be lies. He spoke in a cold and accusing way. When Ariel tried to argue or say she was stressed, he quickly changed how he was talking to her to put emotional pressure on her. They needed to be in charge of more parts of their lives because of this need. Ghart knew where she was at all times and asked her specific questions about the people she had talked to. He became very worried when she was gone longer than planned. He would sometimes show up out of nowhere during her video calls, listen in on them, or ask her leading questions later. But to people outside of his family, he kept up the image of being calm and collected. No one knew what was going on behind closed doors. This tense setting caused sudden changes in mood. He could go from being quiet and distant to angry outburst in the same day. He was always nice and kind in public, but at home he let himself say mean things, be sarcastic, and make threats that were not quite so clear. He would sometimes leave for hours with no reason and then come back as if nothing had happened. Because of these ups and downs, Ariel was always on edge because she didn't know which version of her husband she would be seeing next. The stress was not only making them feel bad mentally, but it was also affecting their sexual relationship. Ghart started to insist on being close, no matter how Ariel felt or how comfortable she was. Any doubt was seen as an attack on his character. Ariel didn't know how to explain what was going on at first. She didn't fully understand the emotional weight until much later. She kept everything to herself and didn't even tell close friends because she was afraid it would break her fragile sense of routine. Many times, Ghart hit her when she refused to give in. There were no witnesses to these events, and she had nowhere to go to speak out. Ariel tried to change things near the end of 2023. She told them they should start going to a family counselor. There were some lessons. During them, Ghart was nice, seemed willing to help, and said all the right things. He admitted that their relationship was strained, but he blamed Ariel, saying that she wasn't being honest with him and kept her feelings to herself. There was no change outside the therapist's room, even though the pressure kept going up as it had before. At the same time, Ariel started going to private counseling. She talked about her worry, how she was becoming more afraid of her husband, and how she felt very alone emotionally. Ariel's therapist saw some disturbing signs, but she never said what was going on at home. She wasn't ready to face how bad things had gotten. She thought of it as just a rough patch that could be worked through. She didn't want to split up the family. She didn't mean to hurt her boys. She wasn't ready to tell everyone about it yet. By the beginning of 2024, Ariel's life was always tense. She didn't talk about sensitive things, tried not to be alone with Gerhard in some rooms, and kept their physical touch to a minimum. She still had hope that things would get better. It felt too hard to decide to leave the marriage. Too much was at stake. The boys, their home, and the world they shared. She kept going through it because she couldn't see any other way out. But the fear didn't go away. Ariel Koenig turned 36 years old on March 18, 2025. Ghart told her that morning that he had planned a treat for her, a quick trip to Oahu, the island next to Hawaii. The boys were going to stay home with the babysitter. He told them to take the day off to relax and get away from their normal lives. The hike to the new Nanu Pali lookout was part of one of the stops. The lookout was famous for its stunning views and dangerous, steep, and slick track. It took longer than planned to climb. A lot of wetness was in the air. There was heavy fog on top of the mountain, and the wind was picking up. The road went up and down a rocky cliff. There were no guardrails, and the height was over 100 feet, so there was no room for mistake. Ariel was worried, but Gerhard kept telling her everything was okay. He told them to take a picture of themselves with the view behind them. It looked like a normal time. They walked up to the edge and stood next to each other. Ariel stood facing Gerhard with her back to the cliff. The picture was just taken. The height, the strong wind, and the wet ground under her shoes all made her feel scared. The woman told him she was going to step back from the edge. Gerhard jumped forward as she took a half step towards the trail and turned a little to the side. He grabbed her by the shoulders and pushed her hard down the slope. She fell because she wasn't ready for it. She slipped on the wet rock, but her urge to stay alive kicked in. She got down on her knees and grabbed the ground. She thought for a split second that it might have been a mean joke, but when she looked at her husband, she knew what was really going on. There wasn't a smile or any other sign of being playful. There was only cold focus and determination. He wasn't playing. It was his plan to kill her. He reached into his waistpack while she was struggling. Soon after, he pulled out an injector that was already loaded and full of a clear liquid. Ariel knew right away that this wasn't for medical help. It was a tool meant to stun her. The girl was able to grab it from his hand and throw it away. Gerhard hit her on the head with a rock about the size of a fist because she was angry. Then over and over, she got hit in the face, forehead, and temple. Ariel screamed and fought back to defend herself. During the fight, she broke her thumb. Her face was covered in blood. Ariel kept fighting even though she was hurt. She finally fought back by biting Gerhard on the shoulder with all the strength she still had. For a short time, he let go of her. She yelled out loud and badly. People heard her cries. There were 2 walkers nearby on the trail. Someone saw a man hunched over a lady and holding a bloody rock. Immediately, the other person took out a phone and called 911. When Gerhard saw the witnesses, he quickly moved back, turned around, and ran off into the woods, pushing through thick brush. At the top of the cliff, an emergency reaction was sent out right away. The hikers gave the first rescuers exact coordinates. As soon as paramedics arrived, they immediately removed Ariel Koenig, who was in very bad shape. There was blood all over her face and head. She was shocked and had trouble finding her way around. Doctors at the emergency room saw a lot of injuries to the head, including deep cuts on the face and scalp from what they think was a rock. Her face was cut and bruised. One of the cuts needed more than 1 stitch. She also had cuts and bruises all over her body, as well as marks on her shoulders and arms that looked like she had been grabbed and held down. Cuts and broken nails on her hands showed that she had tried to hold on or fight back. Most likely, she broke her right thumb while trying to protect her head from the hits. Medical staff also saw signs of being emotionally and physically shocked and very tired. Ariel also had headaches, dizziness, and a sensitivity to light, which were all signs of a slight traumatic brain injury. Even though she was badly hurt, her injuries were not life-threatening. It was said that her situation was serious but stable. After the first round of care, Ariel was taken to the trauma unit to be watched. Experts in psychological recovery and help for people who have been victims of violence started working with her right away. As soon as the Honolulu Police Department heard about the attempted murder, they declared the situation as serious and began a full-scale search. The area around Nanu Pali was made safe. A chopper, K-9 units, and more ground teams were sent to the scene. The search was especially hard because of the rough terrain, thick vegetation, steep hills, and rough landscape. Before the police arrived, Ghart Koig had already run away. He walked, staying off of paths and finding his way through dense forest. He avoided towns, never got close to roads, and didn't talk to anyone. It was clear that this wasn't something I did on the spot. The attack and flight were both planned and carried out on purpose. After that, there was no word from him for hours. He didn't say why he left or try to get back home. Investigators quickly figured out that this wasn't a rant. It was a carefully planned act with a plan to disappear. After several hours of searching for the suspect, Ghart made the only known phone call that was later added to the case file. He talked to his son Emil from his first marriage through a video call. During the call, Ghart looked messy. His clothes were stained with blood and dirt, and he had a tired, drawn face. He said exactly what Emil heard. "I tried to kill Ariel, but she got away." He also said he was going to kill himself, which made it sound like he might jump off a cliff. Emil called him and tried to calm him down, but the call was short. A helicopter's hum could be heard in the background. The police were already going through the area. That video call was very important to the case. It had a clear admission and showed that the suspect's mental health was unstable. Because of the threats of self-harm and possible harm to others, the authorities stepped up their reaction. The search area was made bigger, and rough spots like cliffs, ravines, and thick brush were given extra attention. Around 7 p.m., 8 hours after the search began, a patrol unit saw a guy lying in the bushes off of a side road. He looked a lot like the subject. When police officers came up to him, they told him to show their hands. It did not work for him. He was quickly put down, searched, and tied. He did not have a weapon on him. His clothes were still dirty and stained with blood, though. His hair was tangled, and the sun had worn away at his face. The name was Ghart Koig. He didn't try to fight the police, but he wouldn't say where he was or what he did after the attack. He was taken to the police station and officially arrested on charges of trying to kill someone in the second degree. That night, both local and national news sites showed a picture of Ghart in handcuffs. In just a few hours, his image as a respected doctor fell apart. The news of his arrest was short but shocking. A trusted medical partner in Maui is now being thought to have beaten his wife. Images of him hiding his face with a paper as police walked behind him quickly spread through the media. His co-workers, patients, and medical staff had only known him as a skilled worker before they heard that he was suspected of a major crime. Ariel was getting better in her hospital room while Ghart stayed in jail. Even though she was still healing from serious injuries, she was in good health. She gave a preliminary account to the police. Her story matched what witnesses said and was backed up by things that were found at the scene. Investigators were sure that this was a planned and intentional act. Ariel went back home once her health had stabilized. After 3 days, she chose to check the garage, especially an area where Ghart often kept personal things. She found a hip pack behind some old boxes in a hard-to-reach spot. Things were inside that didn't belong anywhere else but a medical center. His hospital ID card, several unused syringes, vials of medicine, and a sealed package of anesthetic were all inside. Propofol is sold under the brand name Deep Prain on one of the ampules. Ariel gave the bag to the cops right away. The items were taken away and sent to be analyzed. Investigators confirmed that some of the substances were not meant to be kept personally and that doing so outside of a controlled medical setting was against the law. The finding made people think a lot about things. How and why did a doctor who was working take these things from his workplace? Propofol is a strong sedative that is often used in surgery settings. It makes people very sleepy and must be given under close medical care. It comes with a lot of risks when used outside of a doctor. Investigators came to the conclusion that Ghart had not just put the drug away. He had planned to bring it with him. There was a good chance that he planned to use it during the attack. This backed up the idea that he had access to tools that could briefly disable his target. There were no proper logs for any of the things in the bag. The center where Ghart worked didn't have any records of those medicines being taken without permission. This was more than just breaking hospital rules. It was a very bad use of medical power. All of this made the prosecution's case stronger. Ghart had the drive and the tools to do something illegal that he had planned. Ariel Koenig wrote a statement that was used as the ground for a petition for a protective order after she was taken to the hospital and the initial investigation was over. In it, she talked about important events from the past few months, including how her husband controlled her in a planned way by insulting her, making threats, and using physical and mental force against her. She said over and over that she had been scared all the time before the event. She also said that she hadn't called the police before because she was afraid that it would make his behavior worse and that no one would believe her. She didn't feel ready to speak out until after the attempt on her life. The court looked over her plea and fully granted it. For 180 days, a temporary blocking order was made. The order said Ghart Koenig couldn't get in touch with Ariel directly, by phone, through a third party, or online. He also couldn't get close to her, their boys, her mother, stepfather, or even the family dog. The court said that this broad restriction was necessary because there was a high chance of repeat violence. The fact that the suspect had already tried to kill her made it seem likely that something else would happen. During the study that was still going on, more worries came up. A search showed that Ghart legally owned several guns and had non-lethal self-defense tools on hand as well. Even though Ghart had never been in trouble with the law or been to mental health services before, the fact that he told his son he was going to hurt himself on the phone was seen as a sign that he was mentally unstable. All the facts were looked at by the court. It was thought that there was a real threat to other people, and the survivor's safety came first. At the same time, legal proceedings began to look into Ghart's work situation. After official charges were brought against him, the head of the medical facility where he worked fired him from all of his jobs. His medical license was put on hold, and he was no longer able to use clinical tools. Within days, the state medical board started the official process to take away his license to work. The ground was clear. There is an ongoing criminal probe into the misuse of medical information and substances to cause harm. There were also limits on money that had to be followed. The court told Ghart that he could no longer access any of the joint bank accounts or property, such as the house, cars, or stock portfolios. This was done to protect the family's finances and stop them from being able to pay for a possible escape. The case quickly got news from people outside of the area. News sites across the country and in the region picked up the story. The charges against him were very different from how he was seen as a respectable doctor, family man, and academic. People who had worked with Ghart before were shocked. It always seemed like he was calm, logical, and professional. People he worked with, patients and neighbors, all said he had never made them suspicious. That big difference between how he behaved in public and how he behaved in private made the biggest impression. People were shocked by how long it had been before signs of violent behavior were picked up. Just 2 weeks after Ghart Koenig was arrested, the case started to be actively prepared for trial. The prosecutors finished their case and gave the Hawaii State Attorney's Office the necessary paperwork. As evidence was being put together, the recovered medical bag, the injector's contents, and recordings of interviews with witnesses were all being looked over. The prosecutor said at the preliminary hearing that there was more than one way that Ariel's life had been threatened. The government says Koenig did 3 things in a row to carry out the plan. He pulled Ariel close to the edge of the cliff and tried to give her a drug. When that didn't work, he hit her with a rock. The prosecutor made it clear that each of these acts could have killed the person. When looked at together, they made it clear what Ghart wanted to do. The case was mostly about how intentional the acts were, how they happened, and how much the suspect knew about medicine. On the other hand, the defense said there was no planning ahead. It was said by Koenig's lawyer that the event happened because of extreme emotional stress and not as part of a planned action. It was emphasized by the defense that the injuries did not hurt critical organs permanently or cause a concussion. They thought that the fact that no one was killed and the injuries weren't too bad could mean that he hadn't really meant to finish the act. The defense also put in a move to change his custody status. They asked to be freed temporarily on a $100,000 bail. They pointed to Gerhardt's lack of a criminal record, his job, his family ties, and the fact that he hadn't tried to get in touch with the victim after being arrested. They also said that he probably couldn't get away because his papers had been taken away and his bank accounts had been frozen. It was also mentioned that he wasn't from South Africa anymore and didn't have a valid passport, so he wasn't a risk for an international flight. In the end, the court didn't agree with the defense's claims. When looking at the conditions of detention, the judge talked about how serious the charges were, which were backed up by direct proof and testimony from witnesses. It was said that Gerhardt had tried to get away from police before and had been missing for almost 8 hours. He had also admitted to the attack during a video call with his son. The judge made it clear that the accused had already shown that they could do unexpected and harmful things, like making life-threatening threats against the survivor. The request for bail was turned down. Gerhardt stayed in jail until his trial. Ariel Koenig focused on getting better physically and getting ready to give her public testimony while the court case went on. It was thought that her involvement was necessary. A sedative was meant to be injected into her. She was hit in the head, and important facts about what happened before the attack had to be confirmed. A group of lawyers and counselors who understand stress helped her through the whole process. Not only did getting ready for court mean organizing papers, it also meant going over the whole chain of events in your mind. Her clear goal was to get justice and make sure that the man who tried to kill her would never again see her or the boys. The woman also asked for a divorce. Because of what was going on, the process went quickly. For the termination of Gerhardt's parental rights, a separate legal motion was made. During the whole thing, Ariel didn't say a word to the reporters. The press was asked by her lawyer to give her peace. She wasn't interested in making public comments or getting attention. She cared about safety. She made sure the boys were stable. Her main goal. Structure was needed in her new life. She set up habits, took care of the house, went to therapy, and slowly started working from home again. Gerhart Koenig is still being tried in court. Even though there is a lot of proof and a lot of public interest, a verdict has not yet been made. Koenig pleaded not guilty after being arrested and officially charged with attempted second-degree murder. This made a full trial possible. The big events started for real in June. The first court date was set for June 9th, but the case is still open because of the large amount of proof and the time both sides needed to prepare. There are still witness statements, legal motions, and juror deliberations going on. The court or the prosecution have not yet set a firm date for the decision. As of late June 2025, the legal part of the story is still unwritten. The final decision hasn't come yet, and Ariel may make a public comment soon. There is a lot of tension in the air as people wait for the end of a story that started as a romantic getaway and finished in tragedy. This case shows how dark and unpredictable people can be. Let me know what you think in the comments and subscribe for more true crime content. Until next time, stay safe.